welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I hope you're all doing very well. Today is my mid-month wrap-up. So ordinarily I would do a wrap-up. Hey, what's this guy doing? Ordinarily I'd do a wrap-up at the end of the month. Sometimes if I've done a lot of reading, I do a wrap-up halfway through the month. But this month, because I read Christmas books, I tend to do a mid-month wrap-up and then not bother with the other half of the month, because who wants to watch a wrap-up video about Christmas books in January? Not I. So this will be the only wrap-up that's going up in December, and this will be the books that I've read from the first half of December. If you're interested in what I'll be reading for the rest of the month, I review every book that I read on Instagram, on my Instagram stories. It's something I started doing this year, and I very much enjoy doing it and keeping an eye on it, and like it's a good way to log your reading. Should talk about my Christmas t-shirt. Got a t-shirt here, it says Festive AF, and it's from ASOS 2 years ago, I think. Quite like it. You don't very often get dark t-shirts that are Christmas t-shirts, so I very much enjoy it. So yeah, I've read 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 books. So I've read a book a day, because I'm filming this on the 13th, so I haven't finished a book today, but a book, basically a book a day, the whole way through December so far. Merry Christmas, well done. So I'll start with the 3 audiobooks that I read, and I'll start with the one that I read first, and that was 'Twas the Night Shift Before Christmas by Adam Kay. This is an audiobook this is a book which follows on from Adam Kay's first book, This Is Going to Hurt. Now, Adam Kay is a junior doctor, and he'd worked in the NHS for many years, and This Is Going to Hurt was the first book that he wrote that was sort of a collection of his secret diaries as a junior doctor, and they're heartwarming and sad and happy and hilarious and just all the fucking feelings you can get just thrown in there. And then last year he brought out this collection of Christmassy sort of stories, like Christmassy events that had happened while he was working as a junior doctor, and I really enjoyed it when I read it last year, and I really enjoyed it when I listened to it this year, because I really feel like Adam Kay, although both of the books I think are fantastic, his delivery, he's a very comical and funny man. He's actually a script writer now, he's not a junior doctor anymore, and his delivery is just fantastic. It really sits somewhere between sort of like, I still haven't worked out who the other person is, but somewhere between Joe Lycett and then I don't know who that other person is, but I really appreciate his production of it. And also, like, these are his diaries. He knows what words are to be said, and he really, the way he delivers it is really good, and I really enjoyed it on the second read. And David actually is due to start listening to it any moment. He's got his headphones in, he's editing at the moment, he couldn't care less what I'm talking about. No. Oh no, you did, have you started it yet? No, not yet. It's going to start it. It's only short, it's like 2 hours 20 minutes, so yeah, it won't take you very long. I'll smash it out in a day. Yeah, smash it out in a day, don't know what you're worried about. The next book I listened to was Christmas Days by Jeanette Winterson. This is another reread, and this is a collection of 12 short stories and 12 sort of like excerpts, recipes, memoirs, sections from Jeanette Winterson's life. Now, the joy of this, and I've listened to this every year for the first, listened to this every year for maybe this will be the 4th or 5th year that I've listened to it. I tried reading it the first year and I didn't get very far with it, but listening to it, Jeanette reads the memoir and the recipe sections herself, and then the stories are narrated by somebody else who I must find out who it is, because she does an amazing job. And what I love about this, and the fact that this is the 5th year that I've listened to it, is the familiarity. Like, what I love about Christmas anyway is sort of like the nostalgia, remembering times, or do you remember the year we did this, do you remember this, and like the familiarity and comfort of it all. And I really get that feeling when I'm listening to this audiobook, because the stories are so familiar to me now, and actually the ones at the beginning are more familiar to me. So by the end I was like, oh, I don't remember this story, and there's a story about a stray dog inside a gigantic cracker, and I was like, oh, I do remember this. And like the Snow Mama, which is the first story it opens up with, and oh, it's just, the stories are fantastic. The memoir section, it's really got everything, because it's got stories which have got like ghost stories. There's like some really spooky stuff in here as well, like ghost stories, love stories, stories for children, stories definitely not for children, and then aside from the stories, it's got the memoir sections and the recipes, and like Jeanette talking about her mum's mince pies and the time she spent Christmas with Ruth Rendell and the red cabbage that she would make, and it's just lovely. And I love it. I really look forward to it, and I really enjoy it when I'm reading it. So really adored it, and would definitely recommend it as part of a maybe sort of Christmas ritual you might want to get yourself into. And then the last audiobook I listened to was Christmas Dreams by Giovanna Fletcher, and this is a women's contemporary fiction / romance type novel, which you will all know is not a genre that I tend to read. Giovanna Fletcher, as well as being an author, she's also a podcaster with a really hugely successful podcast called Happy Mum, Happy Baby, or Happy Baby, Happy Mum, something like that. Off the back of her success as an author and a podcaster, she's actually recently been in the I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here Castle. It wasn't in a jungle this year, so it's a reality TV programme on in the UK, where a group of celebrities usually go to the Australian jungle and spend some time there doing challenges and things like that. But that couldn't happen this year, so they've gone to a castle in Wales. And she won, and I loved her. She's just so kind and warm and just a wonderful person. And I'd been watching her every night on my telly for 3 weeks, and when that finished I was like, oh, maybe I'll reread some of her books, or maybe I'll read, because I used to read like women's contemporary fiction before I got into my groove of what I actually liked, and I listened to this, which is a Christmas short story, 2 short novellas based on 2 books that she'd written many years ago. I think this actually collection of novella came out a few years ago, and turns out I'd actually read both of the books that it was based on, so I had some sort of like background knowledge. But love Giovanna, but do not love women's contemporary fiction, and it all just feels so sort of twee and like, it's just not for me. And I am going to make a video on this in January, why I don't like women's contemporary fiction, because there are a whole host of reasons. I can go into it now, but yeah, this just wasn't for me. It was Christmassy, but it was also like not for me. So it's done now, isn't it? But let's move on to the actual books that I read. So these 4 I'm not going to go into great detail about, because they're tiny little poetry collections, and they're tiny little poetry collections that I reread every single year. So yeah, you don't need to hear me talk about them again. But they are Frost Fair by Carol Ann Duffy. All of them are by Carol Ann Duffy. All the same. Mrs. Scrooge by Carol Ann Duffy. The Wren Boys by Carol Ann Duffy. And The King of Christmas by Carol Ann Duffy. So I read all those 4, really enjoyed all of them, like maybe more so this year. The Frost Fair in particular I enjoyed more than I had done before. But yeah, very cute and lovely things to read. Like I had like 4 nights back to back where I would sit, and this would be the last thing I would read before I went to bed, so that was really enjoyable. And then I've got a picture book which was new to me this year. That's The Empty Stocking by Richard Curtis and Rebecca Cobb. Richard Curtis of Love Actually fame. I think Rebecca Cobb, I want to say Rebecca Cobb is his daughter, but I can't be certain. Maybe not. Oh, so Rebecca Cobb does the illustrations and Richard Curtis does the story. But yeah, it's a really cute little story about sisters and about being on the naughty list or being on the nice list, and sort of showing up for your sister and like delivering for her and doing the best for her, even though it might not be in your nature to do that. And yeah, it was just lovely, very heartwarming, really cute. I believe that Richard Curtis and Rebecca Cobb have got another book out this year, another Christmas book, but I didn't get that. I had planned to get it and then I just didn't get around to it. So yeah, very cute, and illustrations are really fun in a sort of like, I say this and I don't mean this in any sort of derogatory way, but in like a scruffy way. Like I really enjoy the sort of scruffy, oh, if I show you the end papers that should illustrate what I mean, but very well enjoyed. And then I read The Miracle on Ebenezer Street by Catherine Doyle. This is the book that we've picked for Patreon Book Club this month, and David and I are, if you're watching this will be going up on Monday. David is starting this book today, so mine and David's initial thoughts video should be up, if not Monday then Tuesday. Yeah, this is the book that we're reading for Patreon Book Club. It's a Christmassy middle grade book about a young lad called George and the fact that he's about to spend Christmas without his mother for the 3rd year as his mother died. His dad has gone completely anti-Christmas. He's not interested. He doesn't want anything to do with Christmas. And this is the story about, I guess it is a retelling, I guess, and inspired by A Christmas Carol. So there's aspects of ghostly presences, like visiting in current life and things like that. But it's fun and it's joyous and it's cute, really cute. And I had a nice time with it, and I gave it 3 stars. Next up is the other book that we were that was on the poll for Patreon Book Club. That's Royal Holiday by Jasmine Galuri, and this is a romance book. And in the same way that I don't love women's contemporary fiction, I also don't love romance. But do you know what? I really didn't mind this. So this is a romance book about a woman called Vivian who joins her daughter on a work trip. They're American, and she joins her daughter, who is a stylist, on a work trip to the UK so her daughter can style the Duchess. She brings her mother with her as like a Christmas present. They spend Christmas together at the Duchess's estate. The Duke and the Duchess are very much based on Meghan and Harry, and while she's there she meets one of the Queen's private secretary, Malcolm Hudson, and Vivian and Malcolm have like a love story, and yeah, it was just very like fun. The fact that it was set at Christmas, I really enjoyed it also, and I enjoyed this in the way that I was sort of like chuckling along, but because it's like American meeting British culture, or like British Christmas culture for the first time, there's a lot of like there was me being like, that's so funny that they've really put a lot of stand in that. So she was like really excited about trying a mince pie for the first time, and also she sort of didn't pluralize. So mince pie is like a tiny little mince pie like this, so often you would say mince pies, but she's like, I'm really looking forward to trying mince pie. Like it was a pie. And also like Yorkshire puddings, and getting really excited about stuff like just and stuff having to be explained to her as an American visiting the UK at Christmas, which I enjoyed. But also like I couldn't fully let myself get immersed in it because Malcolm, who is the British guy in it, he's still using like American colloquialisms, like saying elevator instead of lift. You would never ever, I don't know any person, I know it's such a small thing, but I was like, that's not something I would say. I would never say elevator ever. And there was another one in there as well. Oh, saying holidays instead of Christmas. Like in the UK, don't say happy holidays. Holiday for us is like a summer holiday. So yeah, and he would say, oh, happy holidays, and I was like, that's not a UK thing. So like, there were things in there that I was like, oh, this could have been a little bit better research. But the actual like love story between them was quite cute. What I will say, and I don't know if this is just me, but like quite often with women's contemporary fiction books and again, I'll put this in a video, but and romance stories, is I often find the male sort of love interest almost a bit sort of like aggressively interested, and I found Malcolm a bit sort of aggressively interested. He goes ahead and changes like her travel plans for her without even asking. Now she is suitably cross about this, and he can't believe that she's cross about this. Then he gets quite sulky when she's not like instantly into a date that they've gone on and things like that. And I find, yeah, the male love interest in some stories like quite aggressively sulky and stuff. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed the reading experience of it. It was fun for Christmas, and yeah, if you like romance stories, I think you'd really like this at Christmas. So yeah, great. And then the last two, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This is actually A Christmas Carol and Other Writings by Charles Dickens, but I only read A Christmas Carol. David and I did book versus film on this book. So book versus film is something where we settle down, I read the book, David watches the film, we stop halfway through, have a little chat about how we think, like if he's ahead in the film or if I'm ahead in the book, what's happening here, what's happening here. And yeah, we did that, and I will link that video down below so you can get my thoughts. But like, this is a reread for me. A Christmas Carol is like something that I tend to read or come into contact with every Christmas. But yeah, what David and I, the main takeaway from me reading this and David watching I don't know what year it was, but it's the Jim Carrey version of A
2009.
2009. I was going to say 2009 actually. Is that Muppets Christmas Carol is the best A Christmas Carol adaptation. So yeah, I enjoyed it. But I think because of the version David was watching as well, when I was reading and sort of looking up, I kept thinking about how ghosty it is. And I think because I associate this so much with A Muppets Christmas Carol, I forget how ghosty it is and how really it is a ghost story. But yeah, I enjoyed it as ever. And then the last book I've got is Christmas is Murder by Val McDermid. This is my first Val McDermid that I'd read, and in here she's described as the Queen of Crime, and I did enjoy these short stories. I really did. It's a collection of short stories sort of set around Christmas, or sometimes very loosely based around Christmas, sometimes not at all. There's one story in here which is set on bonfire night, which really doesn't have anything to do with Christmas apart from it's in November, which is next to December. But I found these stories like enjoyable, and I was getting along with them. What I will say is that there's a hell of a lot of revenge in these. Every single story, the motive is revenge, which I found a bit sort of samey, especially after I'd realised after the first sort of 5 stories that the motive was revenge. Like after that I was like, everything is about revenge, and I don't feel like anything is said in here about that. But what I will say is that one of these stories, the last story in fact, so already like I'd enjoyed the stories but was getting very much used to the pattern of, oh, this is going to be done because of revenge. So already I was able to sort of pick out who potentially could be the perpetrator because I was looking at anyone who'd had anything sort of like wrong done to them. But the last story involves a real sort of like shocking like sexual assault, and it's a sexual assault against a criminal. So you're almost like, what I felt like Val McDermid was doing, this is such a morbid point to end this wrap up on, is that you were almost, I feel like you were being led to think that it wasn't that bad a thing, that this criminal had sexual assault, like, no, that person wasn't even a criminal. That person was like a baddie in the story. So like a villain in the story. That person had sexual assault performed on them, or like was a victim of sexual assault. And you were supposed to think, I don't know if you were supposed to think like, oh, well, they deserved it, because no one fucking deserves it. But like, I felt like that's what Val McDermid was leading you to think. Like there was no sort of like, oh, I really am in turmoil here. Like this is really hard that this person's a victim of sexual assault, but they've done such bad things. Like it wasn't like that. It was like they were trying, like I felt like Val McDermid was trying to make you think, oh, good, which is awful. So yeah, that sort of took it away from me. Merry Christmas indeed. So that was 3-star, knocked it down to 2-star for me. So yeah, I will read some more Val McDermid, because the actual writing style, so long as like every single fucking book isn't about revenge, because I've already bloody worked that out from here. But yeah, that last story, nah. So yeah, so those are the books that I've read so far in the month of December. As I said, if you want to keep track with what I'll be reading for the rest of the year, do go and check out my Instagram stories. I've also got some Instagram stories highlights on my page of like books that I've read the whole year if you want to have a little look back, and they have their star ratings on them. So yeah, that's a good way for me to track my reading, but also if you're interested in looking at what I've read this year, or just getting some recommendations if you think, oh, I quite like the same things Lauren's does. If you see some 5-star reads in there, you might like it. That's where my reading reviews will be for the rest of the year, and then we'll be back to regular wrap-ups from January. So yeah, those are the books that I read in the month of December. Let me know what you've been reading so far in December, and I will see you all again tomorrow for another Vlogmas video. Goodbye!